Session 7 of Active Listening Mastery. 15 Practical Lessons for Better Communication. Paraphrasing and reflecting what you hear. Imagine finishing a conversation and feeling completely confident that you understood the other person, only to discover later that you misunderstood what they meant. This happens more often than most people realize. A friend explains why they are upset, but you focus on one detail and miss the real concern. A family member talks about a difficult decision, but you assume they're asking for advice when they only want to be understood. A coworker describes a problem, and everyone leaves the meeting with a different interpretation of what should happen next. The problem is not always that people are ignoring each other. Sometimes they are listening carefully but interpreting the message through their own experiences, expectations, and assumptions. That is why one of the most useful active listening skills is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means briefly restating another person's main message in your own words to check whether you understood it correctly. It is not repeating every sentence. It is not copying the speaker's exact words. It is not changing the message or adding your own opinion. It is a clear and respectful way of saying, "This is what I understand you mean." Is that correct? Simple phrases can make this process natural. You might say, "You are saying that, it sounds like," or "if I understand you correctly." These phrases create space for the other person to confirm, correct, or clarify your understanding. In this session, you will learn how to paraphrase naturally, how to avoid sounding mechanical, how to reflect both facts and feelings, and how this skill can prevent misunderstandings in everyday conversations. The first purpose of paraphrasing is accuracy. When someone speaks, you do not receive their meaning directly. You hear their words, interpret those words, connect them with your own knowledge, and form an understanding. During that process, important details can change without you noticing. Suppose a coworker says, "I am concerned that we are moving too quickly with this project. We have not tested the new process, and I am worried that we may create more problems later." A weak response might be, "You do not want to work on the project." That response changes the meaning. The coworker did not say they wanted to stop working. They expressed concern about the speed of the process and the lack of testing. A more accurate paraphrase would be, "If I understand you correctly, you support the project, but you are concerned that we are moving forward before the new process has been tested." This response separates the person's concern from an assumption about their attitude. It also gives the coworker an opportunity to say, "Yes, that is exactly what I mean," or "almost, but my main concern is the risk to our customers." That correction is valuable. It prevents the conversation from continuing on a false understanding. Paraphrasing is not a test designed to prove that you were listening. Its purpose is to make understanding more accurate. The second purpose is recognition. People often want to know that their message has reached another person. They may not expect agreement, approval, or an immediate solution. They may simply want evidence that their perspective has been heard fairly. Imagine that a woman tells her friend, "I have been trying to explain why this situation bothers me, but everyone keeps telling me that I am overreacting." Her friend immediately says, "You should ignore them and focus on something else." The advice may be well-intentioned, but it skips over the woman's experience. She may feel that her concern has been dismissed again. A more helpful response could be, "It sounds like what hurts you most is not only the situation itself, but also the feeling that people are not taking your concerns seriously." That response does not necessarily agree with every conclusion she has reached. It shows that her experience has been understood. When people feel recognized, they often become more willing to explain themselves clearly. They may become less defensive because they no longer need to repeat the same point with greater intensity. This is one reason paraphrasing can reduce conflict. Many disagreements continue because people are responding to interpretations rather than to what was actually said. However, effective paraphrasing requires more than replacing a few words with synonyms. You need to identify the central message. Ask yourself, what is this person mainly trying to communicate? Are they describing a problem, expressing a concern, explaining a decision, asking for support, sharing a feeling, requesting a change? You do not need to repeat every detail. Focus on the meaning that connects the details. For example, a student might say, I understand the material when I study alone, but during exams I become nervous. Then I rush through the questions, forget information, and make mistakes that I normally would not make. A mechanical response would repeat nearly every point. You understand the material when studying alone, but during exams you become nervous. Rush through questions, forget information, and make mistakes. Although accurate, this may sound like a recording. A stronger paraphrase would be, you feel prepared before the exam, but anxiety during the test makes it difficult for you to show what you know. The second response is shorter, clearer, and focused on the central meaning. Good paraphrasing is usually selective. You are not trying to reproduce the entire conversation. You are identifying the message that matters most at that moment. Another important skill is reflecting feelings as well as facts. Facts tell you what happened. Feelings help explain why the experience matters to the speaker. Suppose a man says, I spent several days preparing my presentation, but my manager ended the meeting before I had the opportunity to explain my work. You could say your presentation was delayed. That is factually correct, but it may miss the emotional meaning. You might instead say, it sounds like you feel disappointed because you invested a lot of effort, but you did not receive the opportunity to present your work. This response reflects both the event and the likely emotional impact. Be careful not to state emotions as facts when you are uncertain. Use language that leaves room for correction. Say, it sounds like you may be frustrated, rather than, you are angry. The first response invites clarification. The second may feel like a judgment. Useful paraphrasing phrases include, you are saying that, it sounds like, if I understand you correctly. So your main concern is, and what I am hearing is. These phrases are helpful because they show that your interpretation is open to correction. For example, a parent might say, I do not mind helping my children, but I feel exhausted when every problem becomes my responsibility. A helpful response could be, what I am hearing is that you want to support your children, but you also need clearer boundaries so that you are not carrying every responsibility alone. The listener has summarized the main concern without repeating every sentence. Paraphrasing becomes especially important when the topic is emotional, complex, or sensitive. In a romantic relationship, one person may say, when plans change without anyone telling me, I feel as though my time is not important. The other person may immediately respond, so you are saying I do not care about you. That response turns a concern about communication into an accusation about character. A better response would be, if I understand you correctly, you are not saying that I do not care. You are saying that when plans change without communication, you feel overlooked and unconsidered. This creates a more accurate foundation for solving the problem. In workplaces, paraphrasing can improve teamwork and reduce costly mistakes. During a meeting, a team leader might say, before we continue, I want to check that we all understand the plan. Our first priority is improving customer response time, and we will measure progress weekly. A team member could respond, so the immediate goal is faster customer support, and the team will review the results every week. Is that correct? This simple check can prevent confusion about priorities and responsibilities. Paraphrasing also helps in customer service. If a customer says, I contacted your company twice, but I still do not know when my order will arrive, a helpful representative might say, I understand that you have already asked for an update, and your main concern is that you still do not have a clear delivery date. The customer may feel more understood before the problem is even solved. But there are common mistakes to avoid. One mistake is adding assumptions. If someone says, I need more time to think, do not paraphrase it as, you do not trust me. That meaning was added by the listener. Another mistake is changing the message into advice. If someone says, I am overwhelmed by my workload, do not immediately answer, you should organize your schedule better. First, check your understanding. It sounds like the number of responsibilities has become difficult to manage. A third mistake is using paraphrasing so often that the conversation feels artificial. You do not need to summarize every sentence. Use the skill when the message is important, when the meaning is unclear, when emotions are involved, or before responding to a major concern. The goal is not to sound like a communication textbook. The goal is to help the conversation become clearer. You can practice this skill in 3 simple stages. First, listen without preparing your response. Give your attention to the speaker's meaning. Second, identify the main idea and any important feeling. Ask yourself, what is the person trying to communicate, and why does it matter to them? Third, restate the message briefly and invite correction. You might say, if I understand you correctly, you are concerned that the deadline is unrealistic, and you are worried that the quality of the work may suffer. Is that right? Then listen again. The final step is essential. Paraphrasing is not complete when you finish speaking. It is complete when the other person has the opportunity to confirm or correct your understanding. Sometimes they will say, yes, exactly. Sometimes they will say, not quite. Both responses are useful because both improve understanding. You do not lose credibility when someone corrects your paraphrase. You gain information. The purpose was never to prove that you understood perfectly. The purpose was to understand more accurately. As you practice, notice how conversations change. People may explain themselves more openly. Conflicts may become less defensive. Instructions may become clearer. Relationships may feel more respectful because people are responding to the message rather than to assumptions. Paraphrasing is a small communication habit with a powerful purpose. It turns listening from a private activity into something the other person can see and verify. The next time someone shares an important thought, do not rush to agree, disagree, advise, or defend yourself. First, try a simple sentence. It sounds like, you are saying that, or if I understand you correctly. Then give the person the opportunity to tell you whether you understood. That moment of checking can prevent a misunderstanding, reduce tension, and help someone feel genuinely recognized. In this session, you learned that effective paraphrasing means restating the main message in your own words, reflecting important facts and feelings, avoiding assumptions, and inviting correction. You also learned that paraphrasing is not mechanical repetition. It is a practical method for creating shared understanding. Practice this skill in one conversation today. Listen for the central message, summarize it briefly, and ask whether you understood correctly. If this lesson helped you, please like the video, share it with someone who may benefit from stronger communication, and subscribe to the channel for the complete Active Listening Mastery series. In the next session, we will explore how asking thoughtful, open-ended questions can help people explain their ideas more clearly and lead to deeper, more meaningful conversations.